Good afternoon. On behalf of AAE Board Member and Director of Professional Development, Neil Otto, it's my pleasure to welcome you to another webinar hosted by the American Association for Employment and Education. Today's topic is Teaching Interviews 101. My name is Tim Newbert and I serve as AAE's Executive Director. Please allow me to cover just a few housekeeping matters before we begin with today's topic. During the webinar, all attendees will be muted by default. However, you are encouraged to submit your questions, comments, or responses throughout the presentation via the chat tool within Zoom. When using chat, you are encouraged to change the recipient default to all presenters and attendees to maximize participation. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to attendees and AAE members. If you are not currently a member of AAE, please visit our website, aaee.org, for more information. We are a professional association intent on positively impacting education through professional connections. Related to that mission, we connect the three critical groups involved with the preparation, recruitment, and retention of pre-K through 12 educators: university professionals and others who prepare educators, school system professionals and others who recruit, hire, and retain them, and of course, educator candidates themselves. We offer annual publications such as the Job Search Handbook for Educators. We conduct an educator supply and demand survey each fall and winter, resulting in a spring report, which is coming soon. We host a pre-K through 12 job board and a calendar of education job fairs held around the country. We sponsor teacher scholarships and school system mini grants to support teacher pipelines. We host webinars such as this one on topics relevant to our membership. We host an annual conference and education career fair each fall, and we host job fairs, teacher job fairs, such as our virtual event next on Thursday, June 10th. Joining me today is Dr. Sam Fecich, a professor of education from Grove City College in Pennsylvania, and author of EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers, and EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers, and host of the EduMagic podcast. During this session, Dr. Sam will review resume tips, 5 common interview questions and how to respond to them, 3 tips for virtual interviews, and how to follow up like a pro. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Sam. I'll now turn it over to you.
Hey, Tim, thanks for that awesome intro. Hey, everybody, my name is Dr. Sam. We're back for another week of an awesome webinar. Today, we're going to be doing real talk about interviews. And I dropped on over in our large group chat. I'm going to drop it one more time, the link to our Padlet for today. And if you've never used Padlet, let me, if you guys just click on that little link, I see we have Marcia's over here and we have June over here as well. If you click on that pink plus sign down at the lower right-hand side of your screen, it's going to turn into a little pen or a pencil. And it's going to have a title and write something under there. If you would like, you can put first name, last name, whatever you want to be called, over up on the title, and then where it says write something, I would love for you guys to share your name, your major, where you're tuning in from, like what college or university you're tuning in from, and what are some questions or what do you want to get out of today's session. And we will try to get to all those questions today. Another really fun thing about Padlet is once you have your sticky note like Marcia does, and June does. And June, if I'm saying your name wrong, please type in chat how I pronounce it. If you click on the 3 little dots up by your sticky note, the little looks like a little snowman, you can edit your post. So you can color code it. And as we go into today's session, you can click on edit and you can edit your post. So throughout today's session, I'll be asking you questions for some takeaways. Feel free to head on over to that Padlet board and just edit your post and add to it. All right, so Marcia, I see you're from Sam Houston State University. If I'm not mistaken, I'm thinking that's the university that the Today Show interviewed because they were giving away a scholarship for a teacher in Texas, and it was really cool. I think that's correct. If it's a different university. Anyway, let's get rocking and rolling. So I'm going to share with you some tips and strategies to help you out with your interviews. And I'm going to tell you some stories along the way because whenever I graduated, I felt really lost when it came to interview season. So Tim did an awesome intro. I'm just going to say you can find me over on social at sfessage, same on Instagram and Twitter. You can find my work over on sfessage.com. And if you want any additional tips and this presentation, if you go on over to tinyurl.com/teaching interview, there's a little form there and it'll be sent straight to your inbox. All right, so whenever I first graduated college, I had a bachelor's degree in special ed and elementary education. I also had a master's degree in certification in special education and elementary. I thought I had interviews down. I was like, I'm going to walk into an interview and they're just going to give me the job. That does not happen. But that's what I thought. Like, so I was like, all right, I have my resume, I have my cover letter, and I know what it means to research a school. I had no idea what that meant. I just heard it. And I was like, okay, that's important. I need to look at things on their website. But we're going to talk about like each step of the way. I felt like everybody else had like this secret spot that they were going to where they found all the job postings. I didn't even know where to look for a job posting. Where are the databases? We're going to talk about one of my favorites, which is over on AAE, which Tim mentioned earlier. If you sign up for an educator candidate portal account, it's free for teacher candidates. You can get access to their job board. It's a national job board. International or national, Tim? Both.
Yeah, depends on who's posting, but
Okay.
it's international at the moment.
It's international at the moment. So you can check that out. That's a great resource. But I didn't know where to post, where to find postings. And once I found a posting, I knew I had to fill out an application, but I didn't really know how important that was. We're going to talk about application tips and strategies. And my first thing for you guys today is think of the application as the hamburger or as the veggie burger, whichever you prefer, and the cover letter, the resume, the letters of recommendation as the fries or the sweet potato fries, because you have to have everything to go with your application before you submit it. You don't want to be waiting around for someone to get their letter of recommendation to you. You don't be waiting around to uploading your cover letter and your resume. So it's important to have all those things ready to go when you're putting in your application. When you're submitting your application, read it over. Take the text out, put it into Word, have Word read it over, check it out with Grammarly, just to make sure you didn't have any typos, because you don't want that to happen. Because when someone's looking at your resume, they're going to look for that stuff, and you don't want any reason to be taken off the pile into the trash can. So you want to make sure that you stay on top of that pile of applications. So have all of your stuff ready to go. So whenever you hit submit on that application, you don't have to wait on anything. You might even want to have your transcripts and your testing scores available as well for any certification tests that you have. Or if you're taking your test like in June or July, making sure you know like the date of those tests, so you can put will be certified July 2021 in this subject area or in this certification area. So once you have your application, your resume, your cover letter, we're going to dive more deeply into resume in just a moment. We're going to start with a first round interview. And in all the conversations I've had with my colleagues, they were like, Sam, we just want to make sure that the person, the candidate, can have a conversation with us, that they can tell us about who they are, why they want to be an educator. Yeah, we have a few questions we're going to ask them, and we're going to talk about a few of those in just some few moments, a lot more moments, but we're going to get there. We just want to have a conversation and make sure you can talk to people. I know it's nerve-wracking when you're going in and you're meeting new people, you don't know who they are, that's okay. But you just got to be able to have that confidence that you are there for that position, for those students, for that school, and just go in there with that confidence. You might not have 5 years of experience, let alone 5 months or 5 weeks as a new teacher, but that's okay, because what you lack in experience, you can make up for in being coachable. And that is really powerful, friends. Up next, we have our second round interview, and this can kind of go 2 different ways depending on the school or the district in which you're applying for. A second round interview, which is what I was more, which I was doing for my interviews. I would go to first round, then I go to second round, and second round is more content knowledge. This one would have a specialist, or if it was for a special education position, there'd be other special ed teachers on the panel. There'd be a principal, an assistant principal there sometimes. And this one's more content, pedagogy, methods and strategy, scenario-based questions in this second round type interview. And then we would go into a third round, or the school could do a first round, then it could jump to a live demo or a third round teaching strategy interview. So what this is looking for is for teaching demonstration. We're going to talk about some strategies to help you out with that. This could include anywhere between 10 to 40 minutes of teaching, live teaching demo. It could be a mini lesson. It could be delivering it live to students. It could be delivering it to a group of administrators who are the interview panel. And then being aware that it's not just that live demo that you're doing for the candidate for the panel, but you could also be asked interview questions after that. And I have some helpful tips and a little story to share along the way there. And then once you get through all these rounds, even if you get that first round, second round, you want to make sure that you're following up, you're sending those thank you notes throughout every round of that interview so you can stay top of mind. And we're going to give you some strategies to help you out with that thank you note, because sometimes when you're looking at that blank stationery, you're like, what do I even write? We have some tips to help you out with that. And then once you get offered your dream job, I know it's not that simple, but sign your contract, read it over. When do you need to have it signed by? Do you have to have anything else besides that contract, like a copy of your driver's license or anything like that? What else do you need to submit with that contract, and make sure you have it signed by the correct timeline? And then throughout this process, friends, this process can range. It can be 1 to 2 weeks, depending on how the school district functions, all the way through like the entire summer months. So please put in time to celebrate along the way. When you apply for 5 schools, give yourself a high five and go celebrate that. When you get called for a first round interview, woo, celebrate that. Call your parents, call your friends, be all excited about it, and then prep for it, because you got this. And as you get through rounds and as you're interviewing for different schools, celebrate that. Celebrate that. These are small wins that you can celebrate along the way. So we're going to start off with some resume hacks. We have a few resume must-haves here on the list. Now, this order, besides the name and the contact and the certification, below that, the order kind of varies. But you want to make sure you have your name nice and big on your resume. Have your contact information. Resources say that 30% of applications get thrown out because they do not have a professional email account. So make sure one of the things you need to be doing today after today's webinar is to go head on over to Gmail, create a professional email account. And this also helps because if you're going to be using your college account or your college email, sometimes your college email goes away. I know for our students, it goes away in July. So you don't want to have all the correspondences with different districts associated with that email address. You want to have your professional email address, something first name, last name at gmail.com, first name, middle initial, last name, first name, middle name, last name at gmail.com. Any sort of combination you would like to do there, as long as it's professional, you should be good to go. Also, with your contact information, have your phone number, your email address, professional email address, your address, and if you would like to put something like it's considering moving to, and then whatever states you are applying to if you're out of state, certification area, and what state you are certified in, because depending on the state in which you're applying for, you might have to take a different certification exam. It all depends. And then you want to start listing your education. You want to list your most recent education first. So bachelor's or master's or PhD or whatever that might be. Any certifications or endorsements or what's that called? I'm trying to think of certification. Yeah, certifications. I'm trying to think what my ed tech integration certification.
Licensure.
Licensure. Thank you. Yes, you want to list all those things out there with dates and when, where you receive that. Any related teaching experience, student teaching, field work, or clinical, whatever your school or district, whatever your school calls it. I know it can be called lots of different things. List those experiences. Under related experiences, you can list things like summer camp, vacation Bible school, camp counselor, all those types of jobs. You can put that in there as well. Any volunteer work and organizations in which you're involved in. This is a great one, especially if you've had leadership experience. Put that in your resume too. So you can highlight that volunteer experience and the leadership roles in which you had, because that's a great thing you want to showcase. Any awards or honors, dean's list is a great thing for this one. If you're awarded, I know our school does Student Teacher of the Year, or if your organization has a award that you got, put that in there too. But explain it a little bit, because some people might not know what that means. So explain a little bit about the prestige of that award. And then we already talked about related work experience, and then how it can relate to your teaching and your classroom. I know whenever we are looking through our resume or thinking, what do we even write? I have a little acronym coming up on the next slide that's going to help us think through our resume writing. So whenever we get our resume ready to go, we want to make sure we proof it. That means we read it over on the screen, we print it out, we read it over on paper, we send it to a friend to read, and we read it aloud to ourselves. We do text to speech on the screen. We visit career services because they're amazing and they will help you with their resume. This is what they do, and they will help you with that. The more eyes you can get on your resume, the better, because different people are gonna see different things. Tim, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you mentioned a slide, and I think you're not sharing your slides with us right now.
I'm not. Can you see it now?
And Terry just.
Oh, Terry. Oh man. All right, let me go back and do that. I'm so sorry. I think I was thought about sharing my screen. I'm like, surely I'm sharing my screen. How's that? Is that better? Are we good?
We're good now.
Okay, let's hop back into resumes. We want to make sure that they're clear, concise, and if you say you're sharing your screen, you're going to share your screen, right? We're going to talk about that when we talk about our teaching demos. When it comes to templates, say goodbye to Microsoft Word Times New Roman font. We want to stand out on that stack of resumes. So my advice to you is do not look at the templates on Word. Instead, head on over to Canva. They have fantastic resume templates that have color on them. They are beautiful. You can even put in a QR code to your amazing digital portfolio to showcase all of your work. In your resume, you want to stand out. You want to make sure what you're telling your teaching story, you're sharing what your passion is for education. And we're going to talk about a little strategy here on how to do that in just a moment. You want to take out all that fluff and make sure it is just one page. I know that that's hard, but we can try to do it, right? All right, so here is my strategy when it comes to writing out like any teaching, like student teaching experience or field work or clinical or camp counselor, whatever it might be. And it's called the SMART strategy. We want to make sure that we're sharing a story. And in that story, we want to mention specific things: who we taught, what topics we taught, where we taught, describe the grade level, the subject area, the district, what were the results of our teaching, what did we learn from that experience. So we want to make sure that we're mentioning specific things in our story, really painting that picture for the interviewers. We want to use our action words, but we want to kind of stay away from planned and assess. We don't want to always use those ones all the time. We want to really think and differentiate the words that we're using to describe our experiences. So did you accommodate students? If so, how did you adapt instruction? What did you use to prepare your lessons? Whenever you developed your lessons, did you think about differentiation in mind? Did you think about engaging students? What did you think about relationship building whenever you were developing your lessons? How did you problem solve with your cooperating teacher, with your co-teacher, with your students? How did you maintain, establish, and repair relationships with students and build those relationships with students? And the R in the SMART method is to review the job posting. So actually look at that posting and see what skills and talents they're looking for and showcase those in that resume. You want to have a resume ready for each of those postings. You don't want to send the same resume and cover letter out to all of the districts in which you're applying for. You want to be specific. You want to be targeted in your approach and really be specific for that posting. So what I mean by that is look at the posting. It's going to tell you what they're looking for in a candidate for that position, and then show how you have those skills and talents in your resume and in your cover letter too. But you don't want your cover letter to be like a rewrite of your resume in paragraph form. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then T is timing. Under your specific teaching experience opportunities, put in there how long you were in that position or in that teaching experience. For example, fall semester, clinical 1. And then you can put like August to December, and then you can put the year in there or the dates, specific dates, where you taught, what you taught, and then who you taught, and then share that story about your experience. So 2 more resume hacks, and we're going to get into letters of recommendation. I'm so glad I'm showing my screen, by the way. I feel so much better now. All right, so we talked about having that professional email address. That's so important. So maybe one of the things on your list of things to do today is to get a professional email address. And then try not to include a picture of you on your resume. Instead, have your picture of you on your portfolio, on your digital portfolio, sharing and showing your teaching and your experience that way. Instead, put a QR code on your resume. So on some of those templates in Canva, it has a professional picture, somebody standing like this and look very professional, but put a QR code there. So now when somebody looks at your resume, a little signal goes off in their brain. Oh, they know how to use a QR code. That's kind of tech savvy. They scan the QR code and boom, their teacher socks get knocked off because of all the amazing digital portfolio that you have given them. And now they can go right to your professional social Instagram and your professional Twitter account. They can see all the cool stuff you've been doing throughout your college career because you're taking them right to it in that QR code. And on your resume, you can even include your professional accounts on that contact info as long as you're keeping them up to date. You don't want to send them to an old dusty account. All right, let's pause here. Let's head on over to our Padlet, which I know I'm not sharing, so I'm not sharing that on purpose. So head on over to our Padlet. I would love to see something that you are excited about doing or something that you learned about so far in our resume hacks section before we get into cover letters. And remember, on that little sticky note, you can just click on the 3 vertical dots and click edit post, and you can add to it. And I'm excited to see that Sherry is just graduated from Southern Utah University and she's job hunting. That's awesome. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you popping that in there. Excellent. Nice. All right, let's see some takeaways over here. Yeah, and the QR code, Marsha, is very easy to do. If you just go to qrstuff.com and just put in the link to your portfolio, and I'll make it a beautiful QR code for you. There's also extensions you can get for your Chrome browser for that too. What's nice about it, takes them right to wherever you want them to go, which is great. All right, let's keep going. And Sherry, you can keep typing out your message there. I saw you rocking over on Padlet. All right, so when we think about the application process, we know that we're going in, we got to put in all those nitty gritties, right? We got to have our cover letter, we got to have our resume, but we might also need to have references or letters of recommendation. Now, there's a difference there. So what I recommend when it comes to letters of recommendation would be to have a spreadsheet ready to go. And on that spreadsheet, have a few columns. Name of person you're asking for the letter of recommendation, their role and their relationship to you, how long you've known this person, their email address that they're going to be checking over the summer, especially if you're job interviewing now, their phone number, possibly their mailing address, and I think that's it. So name, role, how long you've known this person, their email address, their phone number, and their mailing address. Because for the references, they might be called, they might be emailed, and also you might want to put on that spreadsheet. That's the other column. Let's think about, did I contact this person to let them know I put them as a reference, or did I ask them if they could be a reference for me? And you can put yes or no on that. You want to make sure you're letting people know ahead of time, hey, I would love to put you in as a reference for this specific teaching position. It is, they'd be calling you if they needed any additional information. So letting somebody know. Now, that's if they're a reference. For letters of recommendation, we're going to need a little bit more information. This is a PDF letter, or a letter that somebody writes for you, usually sends to you as a PDF, talking about your teaching experience or your role as an educator. And this can be given to you. You can ask somebody that is a cooperating teacher or a mentor teacher. You can ask your college supervisor, your student teacher supervisor, or a professor in which you worked closely with. If you're a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant, you can always ask your professor in whom you worked with. An employer, as long as it's a related field. So you don't want to be asking your friends or anything, but you can ask some of those people, but you want to give them time to write it. We want to do a good job for you. So give us some time to write a good letter. And I would say between 2 weeks and a month is a really good time frame. Now during the end of the semester is like crunch time. So I know that a letter of recommendation is really important to you, but as professor, we're trying to get our grades in and everything submitted in time. So if you're looking for letters of recommendation, I'd wait like a little bit after your semester is over, maybe about a week or so, to check in with your professor, especially if you're asking them. When you ask them for a letter of recommendation, include in that email an attachment that goes to your updated resume, because we might not have seen you in a semester or so. So it's always good to have your most updated resume attached there as well. And share with us as much as you can about the position in which you are applying for, so we can speak to those specific talents and skills in which they're asking for. And then include, ask them also for their contact information, just in case you need to put in there for references. So that's my little bits of information when it comes to letters of recommendation. It's important to get 3 to 5 letters. You want to have varied letters of people who have known you for varied number of years and in different capacities as well, so they can speak to your different teaching experiences. All right, so let's talk about how to find a posting. Now we know AAEE has a great job board that they have up on their teacher candidate portal. If you head on over to aaee.org, I'm sure Tim's going to drop the link any minute now, and you can sign in and create your own teacher candidate account, and it is free. It is free, and they have a whole job board there ready to go for you. My other suggestion is to be nosy. And a good friend of mine, Julia Pucci, used this method to find her teaching job. She trained in PA to be a teacher, and she moved to Texas. And she was nosy on social media. So what she did is she looked up different schools and districts, and she followed them on Facebook, she followed them on Twitter, and if they had Instagram, she would turn on notifications on that specific district. Now the district does not know that you turn notifications on for their posts, but you know. And anytime they posted anything, she'd make sure if she was able to resonate with that post, she liked it or commented on it. And then sometimes people post out on social, hey, we have this opening. And that's what happened. They posted on social. She got a little big notification. She looked at it. There was a posting. She applied for it. You can also set up Google alerts for different schools and districts. So anytime that school or that district is mentioned online, you get a little Google alert. One strategy that I did was whenever I was looking for my job is I had all the schools and districts in which I was interested in a little folder on my browser with links to all of their human resources pages. So anywhere where they were posting their jobs. So if that was a specific website that school was posting to, for example, in Pennsylvania, PA Educators, where a lot of districts post, so I would have that up. Some districts would post right on their home, their human resources page. I made sure I had that up. But every Monday morning, I'd get my cup of coffee, 8 a.m. I'd start going through my list just to see if there were any updates. And that was a great way to kind of get me into a routine, because my good friend, Steve Maker, he shares you have to be resilient in your job search. And it's so true. Keep going, keep pushing through. You can do this. You have to find the right job that is a good fit for you and a good fit for the district. So let's talk about what that means. Now, I know I was told you have to research the school. You have to research the school. But I really didn't know what that meant. I thought I did, but I didn't. And I was like, oh, you just look at their vision and mission statements. Truly, that's all I need to know. No, there's so much more to that. So when you look at that mission or vision statement, you might even want to have a spreadsheet. I'm a big fan of spreadsheets, as you can tell here, with the name of the district, their mission, how you resonate with that mission, and the names of any of their administrators. So you can follow them on social or anything like that. So you can still be nosy with that district. So look at their mission statement. What in that mission statement speaks to you as a teacher? Because if there's stuff in that mission statement, you're like, I don't really, that doesn't align with my philosophy, that doesn't align with my teacher vision, then don't apply there. That's okay. It's okay to say no to districts. Because if they're not aligned with your teaching heart, then you need to find somewhere that is, because it's only going to benefit you, your students, the district, and the school. Read through and really dig into that district's website. For some districts, they might have their monthly newsletter up. Dig into that, see what cool stuff's going on. You can look at specific classroom teachers' websites. Some of them are updated, some are not, but you can get a good feel for it. Do they use Google Classroom? Do they use Nearpod? Do they use Pear Deck? Do they use Jamboard? What are some things that they're using in their classrooms? And you can look to see and kind of get a little nosy that way. Read through if the classroom teachers have any weekly newsletters that they send out to their students. They might post it on their class website. Read through that, especially in the grade level that you would be applying for. For that specific school, you can look up any behavior support systems, see if they have a school-wide behavior support plan, and look into that. Look up their curriculum. Some of them might have them posted there, and dig into that. If you're able to, research a little bit about that curriculum scope and sequence, make sure you do so. Look at the student handbooks, the faculty handbooks, because if you want to look at those policies, because if they ask you a question about educational technology and one of their policies is all students' cell phones must be put away at all times, you're like, oh, I think students should be using cell phones in the classroom. You want to be mindful of the policies in that district. So that might not be a school you want to apply for if they require their kids to have their cell phones in their backpacks at all times. Let's see, for some schools, you can look at their year at a glance. So you can look to see their data, see where they're thriving, see where they're struggling. How can you help with that area in which they are struggling? That is also really cool. And then looking at their extracurricular activities, because friends, you do not need to have a certification in music theater to help out with the musical. You can just help out, and that's always great. What can you help support the community and the school with? And that's something you want to be thinking about. And what can you help bring to that school? So for example, if you are, say you minored in American Sign Language and that's your jam, like, you know what, I would be able to bring a sign language club to the middle school. I would love to, do this with our students. So let's pause here. Let's head on over to Padlet. What are some takeaways that we have so far?
And Dr. Sam, there's also a Q&A that came through.
Oh, sure.
Or I guess it's a Q, and we're hoping you'll give an A. For references, for references, should those be on a separate sheet of paper? Maureen is asking.
Yeah, so for your letters of recommendation, they should be like a PDF that you can just put right into your application. Some of your applications might ask for, please upload 3 letters of recommendation. You can pop them right in as PDFs. For your references, depending on the application, it just might ask, please put your references here, and it could have like a spot for the name, spot for their role, their email, and their phone number. So what I would recommend is, so you have all that in one spot, have a little Google spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet, so you have all that information. You don't have to go looking for it every time. So it's just all in one spot. Does that help, Maureen?
She says yes.
Boop, boop. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep going here. Awesome. Just looking through that. Can the reference, another question down here, I think it's from Sherry. Can the references be the same people that you have letters of recommendation for? Absolutely, they can be. They can be the same person. That is okay. Just let them know that they are a reference, as well as you're submitting their letter of recommendation for that application. And Sherry also has, I don't have a lot of pictures from student teaching. Should I still make a digital portfolio? Yes, Sherry, a digital portfolio can really help you stand out in that application process and on that resume. Although someone might not look at it during your interview, you might be able to reference it during your interview, share a tab, share a story, share an experience from your digital portfolio. And Sherry, if you hit me up in DMs after today, I'll give you some resources on creating your digital portfolio. And Tori, you're a neighbor from Slippery Rock. Awesome, fantastic. So let's see here. I would love to be confident in my interviews and learn what is best to show and do. Okay, so we're going to talk about some interview questions, I think coming up soon. So a couple of things to research the school. I would even go back to that lovely spreadsheet I keep mentioning. And put in like a couple of columns, like what is that mission statement? How do you resonate with it? What are some school policies? What's their positive behavior support? So you're gonna write that out and you're doing that research ahead of time. That's gonna help you be as prepared as possible for that interview. The more you know about that school, and then you can ask the interviewer questions, and we're gonna talk about that soon, because we don't wanna ask them questions we can just look up online, because that just looks lazy. And we wanna make sure we have good questions ready to go for our interview panel. We're going to have a couple of those coming up. All right, so this one, for these questions, I would love for us to like practice our answer in chat, or if you want to put your answer over on the Padlet, just somewhere where you can like start thinking through your answers. Now, these are some common questions. Please note that this is not at all an exhaustive list, depending on what type of position you'd be applying for. So we're going to get a question, something like, tell me about yourself. So tell me about yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself, something along those lines. And this is that 30-second pitch that you have to share about who you are as a teacher, why you want to be an educator, and how you're going to impact that school. So what I recommend you doing is thinking about your why. Why do you want to be an educator of excellence? Why did you decide to get that certification? And share a story behind that. Now, don't give us your life story. That's great, but we'll save that for another time for a long cup of coffee. But think of this as an espresso shot. We just want to know really quickly who you are, why you want to be a teacher, where or how like you became to be a teacher, what's your story, what's your why, that type of stuff, your certification. You can weave that all into a story. So let me share a little one with you. Hi, my name is Sam Festich, and I am really excited to be applying for this elementary position. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be an elementary teacher. Not only do I enjoy working with kids, but I absolutely love seeing their light bulb moments go off. I love engaging students with educational technology in meaningful and purposeful ways. I'm excited to pursue a master's in educational technology after my first year teaching. I'm really excited to be here today, and thank you so much for having me. Something like that. That was like off the fly. I was trying to thinking back to like bachelor's degree stamp, like what would I have said? But you want to show your excitement for the position, share your certification area, share a little story if you had an impactful teacher, or maybe you didn't have a teacher that wasn't so great, but that's okay, because you want to have your students in your classroom have a great experience with you. For example, if you're a math teacher, sometimes people say, I'm not a math person. You can kind of play off of that in your interview. And another one that I'm going to talk about is your greatest strength and weakness. And this is one of my favorite questions. Before, I did not like this question. I was like, what do I even say to this? So your greatest strength and weakness, and they can be asked two different ways. So if it's asked in the way of what's your greatest strength, and then you answer, what's your greatest weakness, then you answer, or if it's asked, please share your greatest strength and your greatest weakness. You want to start with your weakness first, how you're improving upon it, and then share your strength. So for example, one of my greatest weaknesses is, I wouldn't say one of my greatest weaknesses, I would say I'm a big picture person. I love to think of the big picture of a concept, of a lesson, of a topic. And then when I start to break it down, that's, I might miss a step when I'm starting to break stuff down. So looking at the minutiae and the details, I'm not very detail oriented, but when I work with other people who are, that helps to bring me up, and I'm learning the skills. When I look at a topic, from the bird's eye view of a topic, now I'm learning to go through and break it down step by step by step by step. And that's really helping me become better prepared for my lesson delivery. It's helping me connect with my students more because I'm really thinking through the content that I'm delivering, building upon those relationships with my students, assessing and engaging them as we go. One of my greatest strengths is using educational technology, or you can say, and I love doing this by using educational technology in my classroom. For example, we use Nearpod and Pear Deck to engage students in ways that we couldn't do before. So every student's on the same slide and I can do checks for understanding. We can go back and reteach. We can differentiate as needed for our students. So all of our students' needs are being met. So you share a weakness, how you're working on it, and then end with a strength. And if you can tie that all together and put a pretty bow on it, that is pretty awesome. So I would love to pause here and have you guys head on over to Padlet, or if you want to share in chat. You can either try the, tell me a bit about yourself question or your greatest strength and weakness question. And while you're doing that, I will head on over to the Q&A. Maureen, that's a good question. LinkedIn or online? I see them both as different things. So I see LinkedIn as more of a connection piece, making those connections with schools and districts, administrators, leaders, and an online portfolio as a space for you to house all the stuff that you've learned. So I see them as two different entities. Now you can have a LinkedIn profile with the link to your portfolio in there as your website. Same with your social, Instagram and Twitter. You can have that as your link there. As a digital portfolio to me, or an online portfolio to me, shows progress. It shows products, things that you've made, and it's something that's never complete. It's always in process. So it shows you growing as a teacher. I think for LinkedIn, it's more of a connection piece. It's more of a conversational piece, and you can have that as a space for people to go and find more about you. What do you think, Tim?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I like the suggestion that you link your online portfolio to the LinkedIn profile, but I don't, having quite a bit of experience myself with LinkedIn, I'm not sure that platform itself is the best place to build your portfolio.
Yep, we're on the same wavelength there. All right, I like how Marcia has here. I think this is her, tell me a bit about yourself. My passion is literacy. I love to read and want to instill that passion in my students. I believe a strong foundation in reading is essential for every student. That's excellent. Tack on a story, share a story about how you helped the student. That would be perfect, just to round out that answer, just for an example's sake. Next one is teaching philosophy. And I know, like, philosophy, first of all, philosophy itself is like, I don't know what that is, but it's pretty much, what's your belief in teaching? What do you think teaching should be about? Is it student-centered? How are you going to reach the needs of your students in your classroom? It kind of reminds me of the question, what does your classroom look like? Or if I walk by your classroom, what will I see? Like, that is like, think about that and imagine your classroom. What does it look like? Ignore all the Pinterest things, and Pinterest-worthy classrooms, but think about, what do your students feel when they walk into your classroom? How do you show and build relationships with your students as they enter either your Zoom room or your traditional learning space? How are students learning in your class? What does the classroom look like? Are the students grouped together? Are there rows? Why is it that way? So think about your environment and how students are interacting with each other. How are they interacting with you? And how are you interacting with them? So just a little tidbit there on that one. And then for some of our special ed teachers in the crowd today, share an example of differentiation, co-teaching, collaboration, differentiation, all those things you can kind of put it into one area. But think about, and with any of these, tell your story, share a story. If you can share a picture, if you can share a story to showcase your answer, that is awesome. For the question, what are the qualities of an excellent teacher? When you share those qualities, share how you show those qualities as well. So for example, an excellent teacher is someone who is a lifelong learner, and then share a story about how you are a lifelong learner. Or you can list your like 3 main qualities of an excellent teacher, and then share how you showcase those qualities of an excellent teacher. Another question that I absolutely dreaded getting in the interview was, what's your approach to classroom management, or how do you manage student behavior? And I would freeze every time I heard this question because I would think, well, there has to be one right answer, and I just don't know it. Classroom management is so big. Classroom management is student behavior. It's classroom environment. That's how my students are feeling. Classroom management is just so big. What are they looking for in this answer? And I would freeze and I would be like, what is the textbook answer that I need for this question? And and talking to my colleagues, they'd be like, Sam, for the classroom management, we're just looking for relationships. Because remember, it always goes back to relationships. So if you get a question, what's your classroom management strategy? Or how would you deal with a difficult student, or a irate parent, or a difficult coworker? Going back to those relationships and building upon those relationships are key when it comes to that answer. So it's not sending the student to the principal's office. It's about building relationships with students, having a student-centered classroom. If a student's being disruptive and you've built that relationship with them, we know our students come into the class with those invisible backpacks. You don't know what they're carrying with them. So it could be something that happened on the bus. It could be something that happened at home. Maybe they didn't eat breakfast yet. Maybe they're not feeling well. Maybe they had to get their brothers and sisters off to the school bus before they got to school. We don't know what they're coming in with. So it's so important to get to know our students. And if they're being disruptive, if they're having a bad day, we can just pull them aside, have that conversation, not interrupt the class, not punish the whole class, but just have that one-on-one conversation with our students. I think that's so important. It all goes back to building those relationships. And another thing that COVID has really brought to the forefront, besides educational technology, equity, and how we're using EdTech with being mindful about the technology that we're using, is also families as partners. We know that parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, were all helping our students along the way when it comes to either entering a Zoom meeting or helping them learn their topic for the day. So how are you going to continue keeping families in the loop, or keeping families involved in your classroom? And how are you going to involve that community? So that's also a great question to be thinking about. How are you going to involve parents beyond the guest reader, beyond volunteer? Think about what are some ways that parents can really come into that classroom and be partners in the learning, just like they were during COVID. And today on Instagram, I shared out a little interview question. What does your classroom look like or feel like? Or if I were to walk by your classroom, what would I see? And for that question, I have one of my answers is like the 3 Ps. And the last P is a little stretched, but we'll get there. It shows, so what does my classroom look like? What would I see if I were to walk by your classroom? You would see passion from me and the students in that topic area, which I'm applying for, whatever that might be. You would see research-based pedagogy, strategies that are peer-reviewed being used, such as Think, Pair, Share. We'd be using formative assessment checks. We'd be doing in-the-moment learning and problem solving, real-world problem solving. And pupil-centered is my other P, student-centered learning. Students would be at the center. You wouldn't be able to see me in the classroom. I'd be bent down over a table helping students, or I'd be at a center or a station with my students. I'd be walking around. I wouldn't be at the front talking. I'd be mingling with my students and being a guide for their learning. So something like that. I hope that these are helping you. Give me a Y in chat if you're like, okay, yes, I'm tracking with you. This is good. And then we're going to talk about some interview questions to ask the interviewer. Interviewer? Yeah, interviewer. Maybe it's not good. And everybody's like, no, this is terrible. All right, let's keep going. Thank you, Marcia, for that note on Padlet. I appreciate it. All right, questions to ask the interviewer. COVID really brought out a lot of struggles with schools and districts, but we powered through them. So what's a struggle area in which your school overcame, and how did they do it? So That's always a great one to ask a principal or an administrative leader, even a school. If you're in a content specific one where there's like a special ed teacher, a general ed teacher, asking what's a struggle area that you had this school year, and how did you work through it? And then the flip of that, what's an area in which your school thrived? What's a great story that you have about student learning in your online classroom? Now I'd pick one or two. Don't ask them all the questions. You can add. There's surely a lot more you can ask. How do you live out your school's mission statement and vision statement? What is the mentor program for new teachers in the building? What advice do you have for new teachers? What's the one thing you wish you knew as a beginning teacher at this school? And that can be anywhere from get your copies done early, or like here's the best coffee spot on campus, or whatever it might be. You know, what are some things that you wish that you knew as a first year teacher? And why do you enjoy working here? So why do you keep coming back to school every day to this building? So those are just a few to think about and to ask the interviewers, because you don't want to go into the interview and at the end like, do you have any questions for us? And be like, nope, I'm done, see ya, and yeah, head on out. No, absolutely, you have questions for them, because you are interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You want to find a good fit for you, for the students, and for that school. We don't just want to take a job because we need to pay off loans. And I know it can be really stressful this time to be looking for jobs, and maybe your friends have jobs already and they're walking across that stage of graduation ready to go, into their new jobs. You might feel like left out, or you might feel like, oh, why isn't that me yet? Your job will come. It's just not posted yet, and that's okay. Be patient and be resilient in this process. Friends, I had to go on 12 different first and second round interviews before I found my job. And one thing I did every time was send a thank you note, from first round to second round and third round. Every time I would send a thank you note, personalized, handwritten note. So anytime I, got back in my car after the interview was over, I'd shut my car door. I would write out every person that was on my interview panel. Go back to that spreadsheet, right? We're talking about this spreadsheet, and write down who interviewed you, how to spell their name, look it up on the website so you don't mess up the spelling, and their role at that school, and write a personal thank you note. If they asked you a question about building relationships with students, or classroom management, or lesson planning, or professional development, whatever question you can remember that they asked you. And I know the interview goes fast and you go, whoa, what just happened? But reflect on it. Think about, what did that person ask you? And in your thank you note, can you build upon that answer? Can you expand upon it? And if you have something in your digital portfolio that relates to that, drop a little link to that portfolio so you can write out. You can even make a little tiny URL like I have up here. Like we go to tinyurl.com or bit.ly. You can make really long URLs short, and you can change whatever is on the back end of that. So if you have an example of classroom management, you can have on there, I would love to expand upon my classroom management. Here is an example of how I built relationships with my second graders as a student teacher. Head on over to tinyurl.com/sfessage building relationships, or second grade students, getting to know second grade students, whatever you want that to be. You can then put that in there and they can go right to it. They can just type that in, which is really cool. Make sure you sign it as the professional that you are. Reiterate your excitement for the posting and the job in which you're applying for, because they could be interviewing for lots of different positions that day. You want to stay top of mind. So let me go back to that comment that I made earlier, how I went on about 12 different first and second round interviews. And my interviews ranged from 15-minute quick conversations to one was a written test in a gymnasium with like 100 other teacher candidates going for the same position with essay questions. I was like, what is this? Oh my goodness. I didn't get called back for that one. I think I was just so overwhelmed with the whole sitting down and writing an essay for the interview. But my job came, the posting was beginning of August, we'll say August 1. I interviewed for it, got called back within 3 days for my second round interview, got another call back like a day later, and my job started in 3 weeks. It was for a special education, multiple disabilities middle school classroom. And guys, that is where I wanted to be. it is where I wanted to be, is where I needed to be. And it just felt so right. And you know, when you sign that contract, you don't want to have any regrets, or like on that commercial, regrets. You don't want to have any of those when you're signing that contract. You want to feel good about signing and turning that in, like, yes, this is my position. This is my students. I am so excited to start that. You're going to be like, am I missing out on something or whatever? So you want to make sure that you have good feelings when you're signing that contract, because your interview, your position will come. It just hasn't been posted yet, and that is okay. So let's talk about some remote teaching tips. So if you are interviewing remotely, check your background, make sure it is clear. Earlier, I had a basket of laundry behind me. I was like, oh, I should probably clear that out before I do my webinar today. You want to check your technology, check your audio, your video, your lights. You want to have light on your face so you look brighter. You want to make sure you know what tools are being used in that interview. So are they using Google Meets? Are they using Zoom? Are they using Teams? Are they using Skype? Some other technology tool you've never heard of. You want to make sure you know what they're using, and you want to dress professionally and ready for the job that you are applying for. Let the people around you know that you are interviewing, and give yourself some time, like 20 minutes before, 20 minutes after, because you want to have enough time to prep and get ready, have all your tabs open and everything. When you're doing a live teaching demo, so when the administrative assistant calls up and says, hey, we'd love to have you come in and do a live teaching demo, you'll be teaching 3rd grade fractions. Here are some additional questions you're going to want to ask. Where are the students in the topic? Is it new to them? Is this review? Where are they in their scope and sequence? What curriculum are they using? What students do you need to differentiate for? What types of differentiation adaptations do you need available for students to be successful in your lesson? Again, what technology? How are they going to be doing this live teaching demo? And then how many students do you need to be prepared for? And this is important because if you're going to be using tools like Jamboard, Jamboard only allows 50 people on at a time. So if you're going to be teaching more than 50 students, you want to know that. And then you also want to know what technology the students have used before. You do not want to introduce a new technology tool if they're not familiar with it. You want to make sure your lesson is student-centered. Again, check your tech, check your background, check your lighting. Even if they do not ask you for a lesson plan in your teaching demo, send them one, because it shows your planning, your prep, your assessment, your objectives. You align them to standards, any differentiation. It shows that you've thought ahead, and save it as a PDF and send it off to them as soon as that interview starts. So they have that to reference. Any tabs that you are using. So if you're going to be using Kahoot or Gimkit or Bluekit or Nearpod or whatever XYZ technology tool you're going to use, make sure you are signed in and you're not just sitting there whenever it's time to show that tab and be like, I wonder what my password is. Make sure you're signed in and ready to go. Turn off all of the notifications on your phone, on your email, on your LMS, anything like that. Make sure all that is turned off and that you have practiced using the tool, and that when you say you're sharing your screen, you're actually sharing your screen. So learn from that mistake and practice using the technology, whether it's sharing screens, whether it is sharing audio. Oh, and then you also want to make sure, sorry, this is another little one. If YouTube is blocked at that school, because I know you might be able to play the YouTube video on your screen, but you want to be aware, if things are blocked, if they're not using things for a reason, you don't want to, hey, here's a YouTube video. Oh, we actually block YouTube. So you want to be mindful of that. Friends, I want to thank you so much for your time on this Tuesday afternoon. I know you guys got lots of good info. I know this webinar went really fast, but you'll get the recording so you can rewind it and watch it in slow motion if you need to. But I had a lot of fun. I hope you guys had a blast too, and you can rewind it and listen to my super fast talking. But I would love to connect with you guys over on social at SFessage, Twitter and Instagram. You can find my work at sfessage.com. And if you want this presentation and a lot more interview tips, head on over to tinyurl.com/teachinginterview. Thanks so much, guys. Hope you guys had fun today. I'd love to open up any Q&A or anything else you guys would like to chat about.
Thanks so much, Dr. Sam. As always, lots of great tips and insights for teacher candidates.
My pleasure.
While we're waiting for any last comments or questions, reminder to all attendees, AAW will be hosting Dr. Sam again on in a week on May 18th for a webinar entitled How to Thrive During Your First Year, 5 Truths Every New Teacher Needs to Hear. To register, please visit aaee.org and click on events. I will post the link in the chat. We also hope to see you on June 10th for our virtual job fair for teachers. Employers from across the country cannot wait to meet you and discuss employment opportunities. I will post that in the chat as well.
Awesome. This was fun. Thank you so much. And best of luck on your interviews, friends. You got this. You can do this. Oh, can I just share what Tori has here? She goes, this was amazing. I was driving most of the times. So I wasn't able to respond as much as I wish I could have. Tori, I'm kind of glad you didn't respond while you were driving. That's always, safety first. It made me feel so much better about having a position not lined up yet, and that is okay. And just be ready for interviewing. Yeah, because this is just be ready for your interview. Your job will come. It is okay.
Thanks again, Dr. Sam. Thanks, everybody.
No problem. Bye, everyone. Have a great day. Good luck.
Bye.